Hello and welcome. When one-person operated buses, or one-man operated buses as they were known then, were introduced, it was only possible to operate a single-decker bus as a OPO bus. The legalisation of one-person operated double-decker buses would come in 1966, and it was a little bit longer than that in some cases due to union resistance. Now, there were types of single-decker bus that were already on the market. Vehicles such as the Bristol MW, the Leyland Leopard and the AEC Reliance being examples. But these were all underfloor engined models and were deemed rather unsuitable to be urban city buses. It was thought that the way forward was with high-capacity single-decker buses. The idea being a bus that seated around 50 passengers and could carry another 20 standing. This would match and in some cases exceed the existing capacity of double-decker buses and would save the company a shed load of money because they could be operated with one person, the driver. One of the first designs was the Bristol RE, which was unveiled in 1962. Now, out of all of the designs, ironically, this would be the most successful one, and the one that the other manufacturers would go on to copy. The idea was to put the engine and gearbox at the back of the bus. This allowed the entrance to be lower and more accessible, and the floor to be ramped or stepped and also lower, which helped with the standing passengers not having to keep banging their heads on the ceiling. And the lower, wider entrance wasn't for accessibility reasons as such, it was to speed up alighting and boarding and make it the one-person operating buses, or try to make the one-person operated buses, a little bit quicker. After the Bristol RE, the next one into the arena was Daimler with its Roadliner. Now, there seems to be a lot of people out there who don't like the Roadliner, and they weren't the most reliable buses in the world, to be fair. And in fact, even Daimler fell out of love with the Roadliner in the end and replaced it with a single-decker option of the Daimler fleet line. The problem, it seems, with the Roadliner was Daimler's insistence to power it with a Cummins V6 engine. In more recent years, Cummins has dominated the bus industry for powering their vehicles, but in 1962 this wasn't the case. And it would seem that the engine wasn't very well suited to this sort of stop and start work that you would expect from an urban city bus. Some Roadliners were bodied as coaches, as you can see in this one in the picture, and I don't know whether they worked better as coaches or as buses. What do you think? What's your opinion? The next two chassis to enter the foray were the AEC Swift and the Leyland Panther. They were both introduced in 1964, and by this time AEC had been taken over by Leyland. The Swift and the Panther were designed to have very similar chassis to cut down on duplication within the sales catalogue. And in my previous video for the Leyland Titan and as well the Leyland National, I mentioned this problem that British Leyland seemed to have about duplication of vehicles that they made. This resulted in the front part of the AEC Swift and the Leyland Panther being identical, and it was only towards the rear where there were differences. Now, both of these are regarded as a bit of a white elephant and not the most successful buses that either AEC or Leyland produced. But it's worth remembering that 600 Leyland Panthers went to UK operators alone, with many more exported to operators abroad. Meanwhile, London Transport and London Country bus services operated over 1,500 AEC Swifts, with many more going to companies like East Kent and Blackpool Corporation. So the model alone can be hardly regarded as a failure. The problem tended to be more with the maintenance regime of the bus companies of the time, which was centred around front-engined buses. After working with very basic chassis with the engine at the front and in some cases a manual gearbox, working on buses that have got a horizontal underfloor engine with a semi-automatic and in some cases remote gearbox was completely alien to these engineering departments. With the semi-automatic gearbox and the engine right at the back, it was often hard for drivers to hear the engine and hear the revs and find out when the bus needed to change gear. So it was easy for the driver to abuse and mistime the gear changes, which also put strain on mechanical components. Having the cooling system at the back of the bus as well also didn't aid the situation at all. And in all probability, this is probably why the Bristol RE was such a success, because it was basic from the point of view that it had a front mounted radiator and it relied on the air flowing over the front of the bus to keep it all cool at the back. While some vehicles like the AEC Swift had the radiator mounted on the side behind the back wheel, which, to be honest, if you think about it, isn't the great place to try and get airflow to cool the whole system down, is it? I interrupt your viewing pleasure to bring you yet another advert. And again, it's a bit of self-promotion. For many years I've been helping to organise the Thanet Vintage Bus Road Run. The run was started in 2008 by a lovely guy called Mick Martin and was initially a recreation of the old open top route around the coast of Thanet. This year, which is 2024 for those of you watching in real time, I've decided to go for a different format. We will be operating a small network of routes using vintage and not so vintage buses and coaches. The hub for the network will be the Spitfire and Hurricane Memorial Museum at Manston near Ramsgate in Kent. And we'll have routes serving Ramsgate, Broadstairs, Margate, Westgate, Ramsgate, Minster, Cliffsend and a feeder bus to and from Sandwich as well. There's no need to book and riding the buses is for free. But we do have a voluntary collection for a local animal charity, Cats in Crisis Thanet. In 2023 we raised £800 for them from generous donations of the passengers on the buses. More information and timetables will be loaded onto our Facebook page. Just search Thanet Vintage Bus Road Running Day. See you on Sunday the 14th of July. Now back to the main feature. To combat this, many operators returned to the tried and trusted Leyland Leopard. And despite the high floor that the Leopard had due to its underfloor engine, it was operated by many companies as service buses. When the Leyland National was introduced, that again had the engine and gearbox at the rear. And initially in the Leyland National 1, the cooling system was also at the rear. But again, problems were caused by this, and in the Leyland National 2 this was redesigned and the radiator was put at the front a la Bristol RE. The Leyland National's successor, the Leyland Lynx, also followed this design. And indeed, many modern single-decker buses follow the same basic design as those from the early 1960s. The engine and gearbox is at the back, and the floor is nice and low at the front. So low floor buses isn't really anything new. Even the humble Dennis Dart follows this basic principle, although the engine and gearbox are in line with the chassis, rather than being horizontal underneath. I do hope you enjoyed this high capacity single deck episode of Jake's Bus Bits. If you did, please like and share this video, and think of subscribing to my channel, as this helps the channel grow and encourages me to produce more content like this. It also means you get notifications when I do release new videos. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.